Hello and welcome to Travel Explore Celebrate Life. We are your hosts Neil Patil and Sunila Patil. Today we are going to talk about Greece, and one of the great things is that Sunila, who's if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll see that she's a little tan, has just returned from Greece with a trip, from a trip with her friends. Now, if you look at Greece, Greece is situated on the southern tip of the Balkan Peninsula. What is the Balkan Peninsula? Well, it is the geographical area in the southern eastern part of Europe. Now, when you talk about Greece, you have to really understand who are its neighbors. Well, Greece has Albania in the northwest, there's North Macedonia and Bulgaria in the north, there's Turkey to the east, there's the Aegean Sea to the east of the mainland, there's the Ionian Sea to the west, and of course, in the south is the mighty Mediterranean Sea and also the Sea of Crete. Now, Greece is a country of thousands of islands, and Sunila has been to a few of these islands. So, today on Travel, Explore, Celebrate Life, both of us are going to dive into this beautiful country or this set of islands. The number of islands can range from 1,200 to 6,000 depending on the size. But let's talk about Greece. Sunila, you had a great trip. We've seen that on the Veena World Instagram, on your Instagram. And of course, you've told us about it. So today's episode, I've of course come up with a list of questions because generally any podcast or any video you see of Greece, they only talk about three places. One is Santorini, the other one is Mykonos, and the third one, I will not say the capital city of Athens, but actually the islands. But you did not just go to these places, or you went to other places as well. So I really wanted to understand, like in brief, how your trip was and what were some of the places that you visited.
Yes, Neil. Hi, everyone. It's so amazing to be back on Travel Explore Celebrate Life after a trip to Greece. And I really want to share everything I've done there because it was just amazing, Neil. First of all, it was a trip with friends, and always going with friends is a lot of fun. It takes you back memory lane. There are no restrictions. There you can do exactly what you want. So I think our women's special tours are also something like that. And this was like a private women's special because we were three friends and we really had a list of things that we wanted to do, which otherwise maybe with family we would, we can still do it, but there is a different feeling to going out with friends. So we chose Greece because Greece has everything that you would think of in a holiday, right? Amazing things to see, amazing things to do, amazing food to try. I mean, there was not one bad day where we had like one bad dish. Every meal was amazing. Every restaurant was great. Of course, you have to be careful with where you're going and all of that. But overall, it was really a package where every day there was something to look forward to. And we kind of chose the places so that we could do different things in different, islands, I can say. Because one of the things is we know, Neil, that Greece has more than almost 6,000 islands. Not all are inhabited, but it is a country with islands. But we cannot forget the mainland. There is this huge, big mainland. And typically, the tours, any tour or any holiday to Greece, would combine a little bit of time on the mainland and then the islands. But the major attraction, of course, are the islands. But each island has a different character. And that's what I realized when I went there. I mean, I had been to Greece some 18 years back for a friend's wedding. So I've had a Greek wedding in my list, and it was amazing. But at that point, I couldn't, and so much has changed as well, right? So I realized that every island has a unique identity, and you should kind of choose where you want to go. If you want to tick off the most popular ones, tick them off. But I would say add one different island for sure, and then your Greece holiday is complete. So it was really an amazing trip.
Nice. So this was like after a long, long time that you visited Greece. And you rightly said that given how many islands are there, there's so much that you can really do in
Yeah.
Greece. And you know, one thing that people don't know that everyone thinks that Greece is all about the beaches. Greece is all about just having fun. But 80% of Greece is actually mountains or hills, making it one of the most mountainous countries in Europe. Now, there's a lot that we're going to talk about, but let's start with the largest city. Let's start with the capital city. That's Athens or Athens,
Mhm.
whatever way you may want to call it. Now, generally, the gateway to Greece can be from Athens or from other places as well. But there is a very unique story to how this city actually got its name. And I'm sure you also came across it when you visited it. So let's start with that. How did Athens get its name?
Neil, I was always obsessed with Greek mythology, as I think a lot of other people are, the Greeks gods and the goddesses. And there's some similarity there with the Indian gods and goddesses as well. Like we kind of assign a god to certain things, right? Like they say the god of rain is Indra, he has the power. God of wisdom is Ganesha. Similarly, in Greece, also, you'll find that a lot of these gods and goddesses have been assigned powers, or they say that they are the rulers of certain things. So like Zeus is supposed to be the main god, or the god of the gods, the king of the gods, and Poseidon, he rules over the sea. So they say that Poseidon was not happy with just ruling over the sea, and he wanted to take some control over earth as well. And he decided to take control of Athena, Athens. But the goddess Athena, she also claimed that Athens was hers. And so they decided that the two gods will have a contest. And so Poseidon then pulled out his trident, like the trishul that we say, and even he had a trident, and he shoved it into the Acropolis, and he said, I will give you, the people of Athens, I will give you what, it was not called Athens at that time, it was a city. So he pointed it to the Acropolis and he said, I will give this city a lot of water. And the steam stream started flowing and there was water everywhere. But then Athena, she's known as the goddess of strategic war and wisdom and intelligence. So she put her mind to work, and then she said, I'll give you an olive tree, because with the olive tree you will never go hungry, you will always have something to do, and all of that. And then people were still not satisfied, so all the goddesses sided Athena, and all the gods were siding, Poseidon. So they were kind of at a tie, but they say that the number of goddesses were more, or Zeus cast his final vote to Athena, and that's how Athena won Athens. So whenever you go to Athens, you will see the goddess Athena in different, statues and everywhere, and you can actually buy one and bring it back. I did, because I really loved it. And she's holding the shield. The shield has the head of Medusa with all those serpents, because she was a very brave warrior. She also has an owl with her all the time, and there's an olive tree. So finally she won the vote, and then Athens was called Athens. And I was chatting with this lady who was, in the shop when I was buying this statue, and she said, can you imagine being called Poseidina or something like that? We don't want to be called that. We are so happy that Athena won, and it is actually Athens. So that's how the name Athens came across, is what they say.
So, of course, it is also the birthplace of the modern Olympic Games, right? And
Yes.
there's one term, Sunila, whenever you talk about Greece, you keep hearing again and again, and that's Acropolis, right?
Yes.
So, what is Acropolis? Or
I'm
like,
glad you raised
yeah.
this question, Neil, because even I was under the impression earlier that the Acropolis was only in Athens. And then you keep reading the other islands, and everywhere you see there's an Acropolis. So, polis means a city, and Acropolis actually means the city of the village, or of the town, or the place. So, this is where people would come together and form a city. So, it means a high city. So, polis always means a city, and anything that's on top of a mountain, or at a height, is an acropolis. So in that sense, every island you go to, every place you go to, every city you go, there would be like a central town which is right at the height of the city, and you can see everything from there. So for example, in Athens, when they decided they wanted to make the Parthenon, which is the temple of the gods, and to show the power of the Greeks of Athens, they put it right on top of the Acropolis so that everybody could see it. So Acropolis was a place where there would be exchange, there would be trade, there would be people meeting, there would be politics. The center of the town was always Acropolis. So if you go to Rhodes, you have one of the best preserved Acropolis that you can see there. So every place will have an Acropolis, and in Athens you see the famous Parthenon right on top of the Acropolis there.
Nice. I guess a lot of history, a lot of culture in these towns, right? And often we see that all of the Western nations are very individualist and not collectivist cultures. But I think from all the movies I've watched, or the TV shows I've watched, or documentaries I've watched on Greece, it appears as a very collectivist society. The people seem very nice. And when my parents went to
Yeah.
Greece a couple of months ago, they said that it was so nice that they just felt safe wherever they were going. And
Yeah.
often when you travel,
Absolutely.
safety and security becomes a very critical thing. And often whenever we discuss with our Veena World tour managers, uh, they often say that the first thing they do when they get into the bus on day one is tell everyone that take care of your passport, because if your passport's done, then you're too sober, right? So that's why Greece appears to be this very collectivist culture. It may or may not be, but then people just seem very nice. Now, I have
Yeah,
many
Neil, you're
questions.
right.
Yeah, yeah.
Because sorry, but before you go on, I'll just a quick reference. I think from the start, they've been thinkers, like you have Socrates, you have philosophers, and democracy was a very important part. And in fact, the main monument, I mean, we often think of it as a temple, the Parthenon. It is a monument to democracy. So it was built by the people. It was not like some king gave the order that, go build this temple. It was actually built by the people of Athens and the people of Greece to show their power, to show how democratic they are. And yeah, it was made for the Greek word Parthenos, means virgin or innocent maiden. And this was a temple built for Athena. So there you have it, like right from the main monument, democracy was so important. And everyone is, I think they still follow that, and everyone is, they really are so nice, they are very welcoming, and they love to take people within the culture, show their culture, and you'll see that everywhere you go. So I just wanted to add that before you go on. Yeah.
Okay. You mentioned everywhere you go now there are 6,000 islands, right, to go
Yeah.
to. And of course, 6,000 is, and like I'll exaggerate that you can go to every island, but there are many islands that everyone can go to. Santorini and Mykonos are islands that most of us have heard of, and most of our listeners who are listening to this podcast may have heard of. But I'd like to touch up on a question. That is, what are the islands that you visit in Greece, or how do you choose from like 6,000 or these maybe 2,000 inhabited islands that may be there?
Yeah, that's kind of really difficult. It's a difficult question, but Neil, I think it's also kind of simple, because once you go to Greece, you want to keep going back again and again. There's no way you will do only one trip to Greece in your lifetime. But even if you do plan to do it, then you should at least aim to visit, I would say, a minimum of two islands on your trip. Like you have to come to Athens, because that is the starting point, and it's a beautiful city. You'll want to spend time there. The evenings are just amazing. I mean, the Plaka district, the Monastic Tiraki district, that those areas are so full of life and so happening that you would want to spend some time in Athens. But along with that, minimum of two islands is what I would say. It depends on how much time you have in hand. And the Greek islands are in groups. So you have the Cyclades, which are known to be a group of circular islands along surrounding Delos Island. So you have Mykonos, Santorini, all of these are Cycladic islands. You have the Saronic Islands, you have the Ionian Islands, you have the Dodecanese. So these are different island groups. And I think the easiest way to do, at least for us, it was really easy to choose, because first we did want to tick off Mykonos and Santorini, of course. And then we said we'll do one more island. So that was our thinking, that we tick off the two most important ones and then we add on one more to get a feel of the different islands of Greece. So first our option was to go to Corfu, which is right on the other side, but that would involve a flight to go to. And we said, we would waste one day in the flight. So let's choose something smaller, closer to Mykonos and Santorini, so that we can just take the ferry and go, because it's so easy to travel by ferries in Greece. And that's why we chose Paros. And the best part is, from Paros, Neil, we took another small ferry and took a day trip out to Antiparos, which is an even smaller island. And so beautiful. I mean, it's that beautiful that Tom Hanks has a home out there. So that tells you that how beautiful these islands are. Similarly, you can choose to go to Rhodes, you can choose to go to Crete, you can choose to go to Zakynthos. I mean, there are just so many places to choose, but definitely first decide what it is that you want to do. I would say for a group of friends, maybe Mykonos would be really perfect. more for a honeymoon or a romantic, or just if you want to take off the most iconic, then yes, Santorini is important. But along with that, if you want to visit a big island, like really big with lots of things to do, then right at the bottom of Greece, you see this very big island, which is Crete. You can go there. If you want smaller islands to the west, then Corfu or Zakynthos would be a good choice. And then more towards Santorini, Mykonos, you have Paros, you have Naxos, and something that we do with the Veena tours is Rhodes, because it is simply an amazing island. And then from Rhodes, we also take a small trip to Simi, which is another smaller island. So you cannot, and there is just so much character to each island that you never feel like it's the same thing that you're doing everywhere.
So how do you travel between the islands? Is it ferries? And how are the ferries? Like, how is the experience like? Because, the internet is one big, like, I'll say dump, because you get good information, you get bad information, you get biased information, you get sponsored information. So how do you really travel between these islands? And what is the experience like?
So most of the bigger islands have airports, and if you want, you can always take a flight, and you can fly from one island to the other. But I think a less stressful and easier way really is to take the ferry. When I say ferry, these are actually big ferries, okay? And they even take the cars and other transport on them. So that tells you how big these ferries are. They're very comfortable. They're all air conditioned, and there are classes in the ferry. So you have a business class and you have a economy class. So they have a platinum, gold, and those kind of classes. So you can
What
choose where
what
you
class
want.
what class did you take?
I was in the economy because
Okay.
honestly, Neil, there's not too much difference between the classes. Yes, if the ferry is really long, then you can upgrade to a better class and have like the airline, flatbeds and stuff like that. But for a 2 hour ferry, it didn't matter, and it's hardly 1.5 to 2 hours between the islands. So we really chose to do the economy. Only on the last ferry when we came from Paros to Athens, that was more than 4 hours because it was a smaller ferry, sorry, a slower ferry and longer time. But we kind of upgraded by just paying 10 euros. We took something called the air seats, and they were so comfortable, like plush, nice seats. So you have the option to upgrade on the ferry as well. So even if you have like a normal ticket, when you go up there, they keep announcing that if you want, you can upgrade your seat and take the class that is available. One thing you should remember is to check in or web check in into the ferry as soon as 48 hours before, because the seats are random. You can't choose the seats where you want to be. So usually the seats are random. And it did happen that on one of the ferries, we got the last seat very close to the toilets, and that's not a very pleasant experience. So if you want your good seats, make sure that you check in 48 hours before on a ferry. What was really interesting was getting onto the ferry, because these are still physical tickets. It's not like a e-ticket or something. So you get a confirmation, then you go print out your tickets, and then you wait, and you see this big crowd waiting. Typically, I would say one thing to really remember, especially for Santorini or Mykonos, that even though the ferry opens out to you only 10 minutes before the departure time, please make sure that you're there on the port at least an hour before. Because if it's the weekend, or if it's any other day, or if something happens, traffic can be crazy in Santorini because the roads are small, and in Mykonos as well. So you could get stuck even trying to reach the port, and that's not where you want to be. So make sure you're at the port earlier, and when they open, you kind of go into the ferry, and then you leave your luggage on the luggage rack. So everyone just leaves, and there are things marked as to where the ferry would be making a stop, and you just go and place your luggage there, and then you go up, and you have the seats. There are some like coffee, tea, and snacks on board, so you can actually even have some snacks on board. Very, very comfortable, nice AC, and you can be out as well and enjoy some sightseeing. But it was so silent that I think after 15 minutes after the ferry left, we realized that, yeah, really we are moving. First, we thought we aren't moving, and then we realized, no, we are moving. So it was a very comfortable ride, and I think I would recommend that to everyone. Take a ferry in Greece.
I think many tangents that I can pick up on from here, but one of the things was that before the ferry, all of these things that you have to do, often not everyone knows of that. And
Yeah.
one of the feedback that we received over the course of the last year was of a customized holiday that we did along with the tour manager, where, the customized holiday, the family was like, we were super happy that your tour manager was there because they took care of everything. So that's one thing to remember, because I remember when Heta and I were going to were in Seychelles, and we were on the main island, and we were
Mm.
going to Ladig, which has one of the prettiest beaches in the world. We also had to take a ferry, and we didn't know the check-in process for it, and that's why it became critical as to, like, getting there early, knowing what is to be done, running a little bit here and there, and all of that. So that was one good thing. And I think you mentioned that traveling economy on these ferries is pretty good. But sometimes that €5 or €15 bump seems like a great comfortable seat, because some people may not um, like being in the sea, and the sea can be choppy some days, the sea can be very calm some days. So, like, being in a comfortable seat gives you that extra comfort, as you
Absolutely.
call
I
it.
just want to add here that on certain ferries, the difference can be like even €80. So it depends on which ferry you're on. So the first ferry we took, the our ticket itself was 80, and the jump to business class was 80 more. And we said, not worth it. Three of us will keep talking anyways. But if you're traveling alone, for example, or if you're really tired and you want to rest, then it's definitely worth it, because that business class, the seats were like flatbeds, like an airline, and it was really good. So if you want to, you can, but it didn't make sense for us. Yeah.
So, of course, we was talking about ferries, but I just remembered that you were telling me about the train stations in Athens, and
Yes.
how. So, what was that unique thing about the train stations?
The metros, Neil. I mean, in Athens, I think if you throw a stone anywhere, it'll probably land on something that's important, and that is a monument, right? And what we decided to do this time, I mean, when I'm talking of the train station, I will also, speak a few things more, because one, we had limited time in Athens, and two, one another thing that I've really started enjoying are night tours or tours in the evenings, especially when you're doing a city tour. So I would say, like, even if you're going, like in our customized holidays, when we go, we insist on taking a guide, because the guide can really bring out different aspects to you, which is something I would have missed. I would have missed the train stations this time if I didn't have the guide with us. So we walked around the Acropolis. Of course, the Parthenon shuts down by, I think, 5 or 6. So you must make sure that you go in there earlier, see it, and then start your tour. And then we were walking around that area, and then she was showing us the museum of Acropolis. So they have a new museum of Acropolis. And what was really interesting was when we were standing there, that the museum is built on the lines of the Acropolis itself, but they have placed glass on the floor, because when they started building for the museum, they realized that there were ruins of an earlier city below it. So it probably from the Roman era, from the Greco-Roman era, or the era before that. And they found this entire city below that. So now when you go in, there is this glass, and you can see things. So we were just speaking to the guide, and she said, "Oh, that is what keeps happening in Athens. Whenever we start digging something, we find something else of importance." And the same thing happened with the metro stations. So when they started building the metro, like they're building our Mumbai metro now, I'm sure they found a lot of things down below. But when they were building the Athens metro, they actually found a lot of artifacts. They found a lot of important things. So there are pots and pans and even toys from the era, like from the BC era, third BC. So there were so many important, findings, that they actually created museums on the metro stations. So now when you go down to the metro, you have these glass displays, and you have all of these things that were found there. Like when we went down, we went to the metro near the Acropolis, and there were pots, pans, decorations, items that people had actually used weaving and looming. There were little toys that children used from that era, and then there were some statues and other things. So you don't even have to walk into a museum in Greece. You just take the metro, and you will have your museum there. So that was really interesting, and this was something I think I would have missed if I didn't have the guide with me.
I think this was a pretty cool know the unknown episode that I'll probably do later on. But that is pretty cool. Now let's come to a thing where if our listeners are watching it on YouTube, you can see that behind Sunila there's a painting and that has white and blue. Now we've often seen pictures of Greece with white and blue. Now, why are all of these islands white and blue? Like, is there a reason behind it? I mean, I was recently doing an episode on Jodhpur where we were like, okay, why is Jodhpur the blue city? But why are the islands white and blue?
Yeah, and Neil, I just realized I'm wearing white and blue today as well. That was not planned, but I think those are two of the best colors in terms of being very soothing and cooling to the eyes. And why the islands are painted, I'm so glad they're painted white and blue because it just looks stunning and it makes for the most amazing photos, Insta photos, just photos. Everything looks so beautiful. So one of the reasons that the island, there are many reasons that they tell you, and but some of the most popular ones are that this was more like a show of patriotism. So when the Ottomans started invading Greece, the the army at that time, they wanted Greece, the people of Greece, to come together and show that they are patriotic and to prove that we are Greek. So they started painting everything in white. They said, let's paint the islands in white to show that our patriotism towards Greek, that we are Greek and we are not following the Ottomans. So this was one way to bring the people together and to pull everyone together. And that is why they started painting it white. Also, they say that it is a potent disinfectant. So, and this is the same reason that was given to me even in Spain, where even south of Spain, you see a lot of these homes that are white villages of Spain, as we call them, like Marbella, Ronda, Mijas, all of those. So the white that is used, Neil, has limestone. And when you paint anything with limestone, it is a potent disinfectant. So, kind of, for the cholera epidemic and the other things, they ordered everyone to start painting their homes white so that it would keep the diseases out. And the blue also was like the indigo from India. You have the blue color lulaki, which is the blue powder, which was used as a cleaning agent, like a talcum powder. And this was available in every home. So they said, the easiest thing to do is to use this blue and white, and it is cooling. So they kind of decided it's also not expensive. It was easily available and it was the easiest thing to tell people to do. So it brought the country together and it kept them disease free. And for us, it's a blessing today because everything looks so beautiful when you go there, and you can just keep taking as many photos as you want. So yeah, that's the reason they have white and blue. Plus the other colors of the Greek flag, right? So kind of just showed everyone that yes, we are Greek.
And that painting behind you is something done by you? Like you've been learning how to paint,
Oh,
right?
that's actually made by my mom. So
Oh,
my mother paints as well, and this is one of her paintings. She didn't know I was going to this. Everything just coincided well. So I think I'm going to take that
yeah,
one for my own.
turned out to be a good prop for our episode. But okay, now let's talk about the food. Okay, how is Greek food? Like, is it good for vegetarians? It is good for both vegetarians and non-vegetarians. And in non-vegetarians, I'll often classify people who only eat chicken, and then there are like the pescatarians now, and then people who are okay with red meat. So, what was the food like?
Neil, I think the food is great for everybody, for everybody. And one of the things we noticed, that we all know of the Mediterranean diet and how healthy it is. I think they've managed to find this right combination of healthy food that also tastes good. Because usually we always complain that anything that's healthy may not be that tasty. Is always a thing that we are trying to balance, right? I think the Greeks hit the right note with everything there. And right from vegetarians to pescatarians to meat lovers, there is something for everybody. And I think we, after a week, we realized that we felt good. When the produce is good and the food is good, you feel good from inside. And that's also one of the things you want to do on your holiday. And we realized that the food was not very heavy. It was kind of light. There's olive oil used everywhere. So it's tasty, it's delicious, and it's healthy as well. So I could go back in a heartbeat to Greece and try the remaining things that we haven't tried as yet. But some of the things I would recommend definitely are, there's a lot of zucchini, there's a lot of eggplants that you see. So you'll find a lot of the eggplant, dips everywhere. You will find a lot of courgette balls or zucchini fritters. You'll also find a lot of vegetables made with zucchini and other things. Then you have the stuffed grape leaves or the wine leaves. So they also have a lot of wine out there. And what they do is they use rice and they use vegetables, or they will use meat. And this is then like, let's, I don't know, I don't want to call it that, but something like a Greek sushi. They'll just roll it into a leaf simply
Yeah.
to understand. And it has a rice stuffing, and that's kind of an appetizer that is served. A lot of tomato fritters, and they make a lot of tomatoes, especially on Santorini. Cherry tomatoes on Santorini are seen everywhere. So again, a lot of things made with that. They have something called fava beans. So it's like a yellow bean, and there'll be like a puree that you can like a dip made out of fava beans, or also like a side dish that you can taste. The cheese, of course, feta cheese in everything and everywhere. So you get a lot of pastries, and spinach pies are just amazing. Something, Neil, I want to just, before we go on to the non-vegetarian, some of the islands have 24-hour bakeries. And I thought that was very special. I've never seen any place with a 24-hour bakery, or the need for a 24-hour bakery. Like,
Is it
I
is
like,
it
really,
because
you
of
need
the clubs
24
there that people are partying all night and then we can probably go eat?
Probably, but they were not in the areas of the clubs. It was like the center of the town, and or by the ocean. And one of the brands, Raguses, they had amazing stuff. So, it became like a habit that we would walk around. We'd have an early meal and then have a late night snack from the bakery, or just pick up something and take it back to the hotel and, again, enjoy that. So I was quite stunned by that, because baklavas, the dessert, is also something that you see there. So a lot of baked items, and they're really good at their baked items. You'll see even many different ones with cream fillings, with apricot fillings, with lots of different things. One of the street foods is gyros or gyros, which is like a wrap. So again, this has meat, and it has pita bread and lettuce and tomato and potato chips and everything. And you can have that everywhere. But with the non-vegetarians, I think the fish. I mean, you have to try a fish in Greece. We were in Paros Island, and we found this small little place which was built into the ocean, I can say. So we were, the view was amazing. We were sitting right by the water, and we could actually literally on that meal, I remember, see even the fish in the sea, because the water was that clear. We're sitting by the water side, and then he said, can you come with me and choose your fish? So we went up, and then we decided to have a local fish. There was sea bream and maletta and different kinds of fish, but we said, give us the most local fish. And then they grilled it so well. And the best part was they bring it to your table, and they actually debone it for you with a fork and knife and everything, and it's just simply delicious. So that's something that you must have. The lamb is good, moussaka, again made with minced lamb and potatoes and other things. And it kind of became a habit that, okay, let's try a moussaka in Santorini, let's try the moussaka in Paros, let's try the moussaka. Every place we went, I think we had at least one moussaka, because that is one dish you must try. The souvlaki was also amazing. So, like, meatballs, they were really good. Meatballs with tomato paste. Oh, I could go on and on. So, everywhere and anywhere you go, the food is great for vegetarians, for meat lovers, for fish lovers, for dessert lovers, everywhere. And the Greek coffee. It's kind of like a Turkish coffee. They don't like you to say that it's like Turkish, but it's short, strong, and a little sweet, and it's really quite nice.
Well, a lot of things that in the last 5 minutes that you've said gave us like lists for actually what to eat in Greece, or what to go to a Greek restaurant and eat. And then, there are just so many of them. Now, as we reach the end of the episode, now I want to come to Santorini and Mykonos. I think it's the right time, and it's the right way to also probably end it. So let's start talking about Santorini. How is
Mhm.
Santorini? What is Santorini like?
So, Neil, Santorini is a volcanic island, so which means that it was built out of a volcano, and that is why it has this peculiar C shape, we can say. So it's like a crescent. And the photos that you see of Santorini are typically from the town of Ia. So they write it as OIA, but they pronounce it as Ia. And if you really want the caldera view, the crescent shaped view with the blue domes, then you must stay in Ia. And here is where you will see all the homes are built by the side of the cliff. So there's a lot of walking to do up and down all the time. Of course, the hotel will help you with the luggage, so you don't have to worry about that because it's impossible to carry the luggage over those steps. But the hotel takes care of everything. And Santorini has Ia, it has Imerovigli, and it has Fira. Fira is the capital of Santorini. The island itself is known as Thira. That's another name for Santorini. But it is everything. Sometimes you hear about a place and you wonder, really, does it live up to its hype? It does. It was everything that you imagined about Santorini. You can tick it off. But I realized that one of my favorite things to do there, I mean, yes, you can go wine tasting, and there are some really nice wines, Santos wines and other wineries, smaller wines, which are homemade wines. But Santos I really like because with the wine tasting, you had this amazing view. So that's one thing to do. You must go sailing in Santorini because the sunsets are simply amazing. So if you want to be a little budget conscious and not stay in Ia, but stay in Fira or stay in Imerovigli or other places, definitely take out a sailing cruise to watch the sunset because the sunset from the caldera are just amazing. So that's something to do. But one of my favorite things to do was to walk in the villages at night, after the crowds are gone, because what happens is these islands are also seeing a lot of people from cruise tourism. And with the cruises, essentially, a lot of people come in during the day, and the day can get really crowded. So in the day, we realized like everybody wanted a photo with the two blue domes or the famous iconic blue domes of Santorini. There are waiting times of 45 minutes to go and take a picture there by the domes. And when we saw the crowd, we said, look, we are staying here for the night. We don't need to do this in the day. And then we came back in the night when everything was quiet. And it was so pretty because everything is lit up. And a lot of these hotels have these pool villa rooms and, rooms with pools. So all these pools are lit up as well. And it adds to the blue and white magic along with this golden magic. So Santorini post sunset and into the night was my favorite and really amazing. The shops are open till 12 o'clock in
That
the night.
that's a view you never actually get when like you're seeing photos of Santorini, because you're just flooded
Yeah.
with photos of the sunset and like all of those white and, but yeah, sorry, I interrupted you there. But it's a very important point that by night
Yeah.
is something that you should definitely think of.
And it's easy. Like even if you don't stay in Ia, if you stay in Fira or the other your villages, take a taxi, come and walk in Ia in the night. And the shops are open till 12 o'clock. We were shopping at 12 o'clock in the night and it was amazing. So you can pick up things. It's so much more peaceful and so beautiful. So I think after this trip, I have this whole love for evening walking tours. It is really growing for me. So I think that was great. So Santorini is everything that you've read. It's not like the island is easy to get around, but taking taxis, or if you are of course, if you're on a Veena tour, then you have the coaches with you, so there's no problem at all. But I think things that top my list are a sunset cruise and definitely doing one winery and walking there in the night. Those are a few things that you must do because it's really beautiful. And I did pick up like this one. I did pick up a painting of Santorini because I found this lady, amidst the shops, there are a lot of artists. There's a lot of local art that you can actually pick up. So I found one person making it on glass and mirrors, and he was painting out of his memory, which was fascinating. And then I found this other lady who was actually using all these old wine barrels, and she's painting on that. So I did pick up one item from her because she was actually the paint artist herself. So that for me is really important when I travel, to meet the locals and pick out these small things from the local artists. So yeah, that was
Nice.
Central for you.
And what was Mykonos like? Mykonos, of course, I've heard that, Mykonos is all about the beach clubs. But is there more to it, or is it just beach clubs?
No, so the old town is really pretty, and you have these famous windmills of Mykonos, which are historic. They're more than 200 years old. And at that time, there was a lot of trade happening there. So to store the grain and to make things out of barleys, when they started harnessing the wind power and these historic windmills of Mykonos. So when, like, you have the blue domes of Santorini, you have the windmills of Mykonos, and to go there by and sit there by the bars and have a quiet drink is also nice. We did realize that some of the restaurants, we were actually really hungry, but some of the restaurants in Mykonos, especially by the windmills and by the sea, are actually just bars. They don't serve food, so you have to really choose where you're going. Beyond Mykonos is an area, beyond the, not Mykonos, but in Mykonos, beyond the windmills, is an area called Little Venice, where all the restaurants and all these shops are built right by the ocean. So I think that's why they've nicknamed it Little Venice. Mykonos was also great for shopping, like the smaller town and the Kora, or the old town, is where you can walk and you can, just enjoy the typical Greek island feeling of walking through. Amazing food is again something that we had on Mykonos, and smaller restaurants serving original Greek food. That was something quite interesting. The thing with Mykonos, Neil, is that it is in areas, so you have to choose where to go. And of course, there are the famous beach clubs, which are not cheap. They are kind of expensive, so you need to choose where to go. We went to Super Paradise. Another thing I realized is the price that you pay here at the beach clubs is actually for the whole day. So don't, like, if you go in the evening, or if you just go for 1 or 2 hours, you're paying the same price that you would pay to sit there for 7 8 hours. And swimming on the beaches is amazing because the water's so clear. So kind of plan your day well when you're going there. It does not include any drinks or anything. The charges are typically only for the sunbeds. So what we found was a drink that, if you have a drink in Mykonos, you're probably paying 30 euros per drink. In Santorini, it was about 20, and in Paros, it was like 12. I think Athens, we paid like 8 or 10 euros. So you know the difference. But like they say, you can bump into a film star in Mykonos or someone else. It is exclusive.
Yeah, I mean, of course, Greece, if you look at it, is the ninth most, or in 2022, was the ninth most visited country in the world. And like you said, cruise tourism means like every day people are coming and then going out.
Yeah.
And often the people in the towns also get very upset where, suddenly a rush of crowds comes in, everyone's like running around, and suddenly everything goes very calm at night. Well, those were my questions and those were my things for Greece. And I'm glad that we covered everything. Like, we, of course, spoke of the capital, that is Athens. We spoke about what is Acropolis. We spoke about those unique train stations that I'm sure none of us knew about. We spoke about the two mighty cities, as I'll call it, of Santorini and Mykonos. There's also the lesser known islands of Rhodes, there's Paros, there's Naxos, there's Corfu and Zakynthos, all of those ones. And a whole lot. Any closing points, Sunila? Like, how would you like to, give your final take for this episode?
I think, one of the things that everyone who goes to Greece wants to come back with some really pretty photographs. And I just want to add a little bit on the photos that you take here. So if you're going in the day, streets are going to be really crowded. You are not going to get that perfect photo that you want. Like I mentioned about Santorini, going there in the evening actually gave us, like, some people actually get up in the morning at 7 o'clock and go and take their photos. Some go in the evening as well. But what I found is that quintessential Greece for us, with the bougainvillas and the whitewashed and the white and blue old, town, the island, the cobblestone streets, and the bougainvillas there. I actually found that was so easy in Paros and Antiparos because the crowds were less, and everywhere we went, everything was so beautiful. Like this small restaurant we sat in Antiparos was actually named Bougainvillea because they had like so much of Bougainvillea, and there is just so much of it there that I would say choose a smaller town, enjoy it better. Like along with the two big islands, go into at least one more different island, whether it is Rhodes, whether it is Simi, whether it is Naxos, Paros. That'll depend on what you're doing. But definitely get into one of the smaller islands for a really authentic Greek experience, whether it is photographs, whether it's food, whether it's sightseeing, or just walking around and shopping. Because here is where I met a lot of locals. Like I met people who were actually, like, we met this guy, and he and was running a business from his grandfather's time, and he was actually using leather and making things out of it. So we met people who were making things, and I think for me that was most amazing. So definitely choose at least one smaller island the next time you visit Greece.
Awesome. So, listeners, that was our episode of Travel, Explore, Celebrate Life on Greece, the birthplace of not only the Olympic Games, but democracy, Western philosophy, Western literature, history, political science, major scientific and mathematical principles, theater, and a whole
Olympics.
lot. Yeah, and a whole lot more. So, Yes, that was Greece. One trip, of course, is not going to be enough. There's 6,000 islands, or like there's 1,200 to 6,000 islands, whatever this constitutes the minimum size really required to be an island. But that was Greece. Hope you liked it. This episode is available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, on the Veena World website, or wherever you like listening to your podcast. If you have any feedback for us, please write to us at Neil, Neil, @veenaworld.com, or Sunila, Sunila, @veenaworld.com. And this episode is also available on YouTube. So thank you so much for listening every episode that comes out, and we will keep coming with more fun episodes as we go along. Thank you. Have a super week ahead, and we will see you the next time. Bye bye.
Bye.